Interpreter Mais, technician, can you give me a check on Arabic channel? Hi, I hear you well. Can you go to the English channel, please? Yes, I do hear you on the English channel as well. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Dr. Abdul Hakim, do you hear us?
Yes, I hear you. Is my voice clear?
Very
Good.
clear, Dr. Abdul Hakim.
Good.
How are you?
I'm very good. Are we ready to start, or we have a few minutes?
Yes, Khalid, please let me know when you are ready to start.
So I think we are ready. All the speakers are here, and the audience is joining. Maybe we can just wait for maybe 1 minute or 2 minutes, so the people can join.
My system says I cannot start my video from my end because the host.
Okay.
Didn't want to see me.
Our colleague in ESQA, can you make Dr. Al-Wair as a co-host? Okay. Okay.
We made him already, yes.
Thank you.
منور دكتور عبد الحكيم، سعيدين بشوفتك.
أخي العزيز دكتور ناصر، كيف حالك؟ طيب، احنا أسعد والله. شكرا طبعا.
نقول دائما نقبل فؤادك حيث شئت من الهوى. البنك الإسلامي يظل حبيب الجميع. شكرا على
الله
دعمك.
فيك وفي دكتور نبيل وجميع الأخوة هناك.
أهلا وسهلا.
You're most welcome.
مرحبا أستاذ نبيل، كيف الحال؟
مرحبا.
الله يسلمك. أعتقد كل السبيكرز الآن موجودين، فإذا
تمام.
بدك نبلش الاجتماع على بركة الله.
تمام، على بركة الله يا سيدي. طيب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings from Jeddah. I'm Nabil Ghalab. I'm your session moderator today. And I would like to welcome all of you to this 9th edition of the International Dialogue on the Role of Islamic Social Financing in Achieving SDGs, with special focus today on the ISDB Economic Empowerment Approach, which is an innovative mechanism for development through Islamic social finance. Before we tackle our today's discussion, I would like first to thank all the teams involved in launching this series of events from both UNESCO and ISDB, namely Dr. Ahmed Al-Marikhi, the Special Advisor to the UN Secretary General, and also the logistic and technical team, Madam Margaret Osborne, Dr. Muhammad Ali Shatti, Dr. Yusuf Al-Aswadi, that have been working so hard to bring this series to life. And also, I would like to thank the team involved from ISDB Economic Empowerment Department in preparing this specific edition, namely my colleagues Khalid Ahmed, Mohammed Mazen Dakhli, and Ghassan Lakhlifi. My sincere thanks go also to all the participants for joining us in this event today, and I strongly hope that you will find it very insightful and of an added value. Our today's event will be divided into 3 main parts. The first part is a dialogue with our speakers that will take between 50 to 55 minutes. And this will be followed by a Q&A session for 20 to 25 minutes. And then Dr. Ahmed Marikhi will share with us his closing remarks. Before I start, let me share some housekeeping rules for today's gathering. Please keep your mics and cams off all along the discussion. However, you will be invited at the end of the session to switch on your cams to take a family photo. The second point, there is an instant translation of this event available, so attendees can select the audio channel available in the Zoom menu to hear the translated audio in their language of choice. We have a couple of translations. We have translation from English to Arabic and from Arabic to English. There is YouTube live streaming available through the link that the team will share with you in the chat box. And you can ask your questions, share your thoughts and reaction via chat. Also, you can definitely raise your hands and take the floor during the Q&A session to ask your questions to the speakers. Hopefully this is clear for everyone. Let's start our panel today. Ladies and gentlemen, before we tackle our today's discussion, and especially nobody from ISDB is among the speakers, I would like to pave the way by sharing with you some overview of ISDB on the ISDB economic empowerment approach and how it's very relevant to the Islamic social finance and to the major development challenges we are facing today as international development community. So I will abuse of my authority as a moderator today, and I will try, to do the proper marketing for our ISDB economic empowerment approach. You are all aware that there is very sad economic and social situation reality now, and the situation of several development countries made worse even by the COVID-19 pandemic crisis. And this can only lead to one outcome, that we should on urgent basis look and tackle global development issues differently and break free from the conventional and orthodox model, especially those used to alleviate poverty in our member countries. So indeed, many of the poor are still lacking basic needs, and with this COVID-19 crisis, almost all types of economic agents have been hit hardly, especially the bottom of the pyramid and the most vulnerable enterprises. The Islamic social finance resources, whether coming from a zakawat or sadaqah, the donation, or endowment waqf, have definitely a high potential in filling the financing gap of the relevant and eligible SDGs. And in fact, as a matter of fact, I will give you a small example with an estimated amount of 300 billion US that could be coming annually from Zakah resources. If we direct 1% only of this amount toward the most pressing global needs and the most marginalized groups, this would be a significant achievement and it will change the lives of a lot of people. Ladies and gentlemen, today ISDB has shaped its poverty alleviation and impact investment approach, and we call that internally at the bank economic empowerment through Islamic social finance. And this approach has been designed based on more than 40 years track records in Islamic finance under all its forms, from research to field interventions. And also it has been designed based on more than 20 years of track record in poverty alleviation and also in microfinance field. And after that, the bank has built a strong and deep understanding of the poverty problematic and its different dimensions and components in its member countries. So the aim of this approach is basically to transform the poor from aid and relief recipients into a real economic agent, into a real economic actor in an engine for socioeconomic development. And this has required a paradigm shift in the way the poor is regarded and perceived, and what beliefs are guided the development intervention targeting them. And this is why today we focus how to achieve the poor economic inclusion with the win-win involvement of all types of relevant stakeholders, from the government, from the private sector, and from the NGOs. So basically, we work on 6 main vectors to upgrade and to uplift the poor people from the circle of poverty. We are providing them with access to well-designed project opportunities. We are enabling them with intelligent partnerships. We are providing them with affordable infrastructure and basic investment support. We are providing them also with access to appropriate funding. And of course, we are providing them with access to market. So it's clear here when I went through all these vectors that no financial institution can afford to support these types of interventions and services. And this is why we believe that achieving an effective economic empowerment of the poor should really rely on different resources and on different financial resources, mainly zakawat, mainly sadaqah, mainly awqaf, that are very effective to cover these non-financial services. So this being said, we will be hearing today from our distinguished speakers about the pressing issues in relation to our today theme. We will discuss many topics, namely the Islamic social finance and SDGs financing gap. We are discussing topics related to COVID-19 impact and measures taken by the global community. We will be also talking about partnerships potential between different institutions, MDBs, NGOs, philanthropists, and all these topics will be, of course, discussed under the theme of the role that the Islamic social finance modes and resources can play in this regard. These topics will be tackled from several perspectives, from policies and high-level engagement perspective, from challenges and barriers to overcome perspective, and also I would like to hear from the speakers about proposed solutions and recommendations and any other relevant perspectives they feel relevant to this discussion. This is being said, let me please introduce to you our honorable speakers today, and we are very pleased and happy and privileged to have with us Dr. Abdul Hakim Al-Wa'ar, who is the Assistant Director General and Regional Representative for the Near East and North Africa at FAO. Prior to this, Dr. Al-Wa'ar served as advisor to the president of ISDB on global advocacy and partnerships, and also he also served as the bank spokesman and its ISDB Sherpa, G20, and heads of MDBs. In addition to this position, prior to this, Dr. Al-Wa'ar held leadership senior position with the African Union, and he was also Minister of Environment in Libya. I would like to seize this opportunity to warmly thank also Dr. Al-Wa'ar, who has also contributed a lot to launch this collaboration on Islamic social finance and SDGs with UNESCO when he was at ISDB. Let me welcome also Madame Yvonne Hell. She's the special representative from the UNDP program of assistance to Palestinian people. We are very happy and pleased to have her among the speakers today. Prior to this position, Madame Yvonne was the UNDP Senior Country Director in Haiti, and she was also managing the sub-regional facility for the Syrian crisis in Amman. Madame Yvonne also was nominated as the UNDP Country Director in Sudan in 2013, and had subsequently organized the Ebola Recovery Conference for the UN Secretary General. We are also very pleased and honored to have with us today Dr. Nasser Al-Qahtani, who is the Executive Director of the Arab Gulf Program for Development, AGFAND. Dr. Al-Qahtani is also the board member of or at the Swiss Capacity Building Facility. He has rich and extensive 25 years of experience. He worked a lot on developing the capabilities of micro, small, and medium enterprises in the Arab region, and he succeeded to establish the largest network of financial inclusion banks called Bank al-Ibda' or Bunuk al-Ibda' or Ibda' banks in the MENA region. Prior to this, Dr. Qahtani held several senior positions in Central Bank, in the Cabinet of Ministers, and in the Ministry of Finance in Saudi Arabia. I welcome all of you, honorable speakers, and we are very happy to have this guru with us today. Without further delay, let me start with the first part of the question on the SDGs financing gap and the role of Islamic social finance modes and resources. And let me address the first question to Dr. Abdel Hakim Al-Wa'ar. Dr. Abdel Hakim, you have been very close to the economic empowerment mandate, and you support strongly the launching of the economic empowerment department within ISDB. And you know all that economic empowerment is all about the right ecosystem to provide the financial and non-financial services with sustainable access to relevant markets, to the partnerships, and all these relevant and very important components. If we focus on the SDG 2, no hunger, what are, in your opinion, Dr. Hakim, the main challenges and barriers faced by MSMEs and social solidarity groups, cooperatives, and vulnerable enterprise in general in the food security industry in the developing countries? And how do you see the impact of the Islamic social finance in achieving the SDG 2 by 2030 and reducing the funding gap? The floor is yours, Dr. Hakim.
أولاً السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Dr. Nabi, thank you very much, and special thanks to the Islamic Development Bank for taking this initiative at a global level, jointly with the UN, and thanks to Dr. Ahmed Al-Marekhi and the UN leadership for taking this important topic and bringing it to the top of the agenda. Now, you asked me a very important question, but I wanted to just tap on a second on the history that's very important to put on records. When I just joined ISDB back in 2014, at that time, the whole world was busy preparing for the SDGs. We all know the SDGs were endorsed in the UN General Assembly in September 2015. In July 2015, there was a big conference for financing for development. That's where the Addis Ababa Action Plan came out. It was in Addis Ababa at the UN Economic Commission for Africa, but it was hosted by the UN and many heads of states, and a focus on the financing institutions to come and make pledges for supporting the SDGs. ISDB happened to be there. I happened to lead the delegation of the ISDB to that particular event, where we have held a very important side event, and I'm calling Dr. Nabi to go back to the records. The DG for ERTI, Dr. Sami Swelem, was one of the speakers. The topic of that side event was the role of Islamic finance on achieving the SDGs. And it was before even the SDGs were globally endorsed. And it's very important. I was the moderator of that session, and we had speakers from different partners. Now, you mentioned a very important aspect. With the SDGs, we as FAO are custodians for the achieving the SDG 2, which is zero hunger, trying to achieve food security and reducing the issues related to access to healthy and sufficient food. And we see from the region, we're talking about the Near East and North Africa region that covers most of the member countries of the ISDB. The latest report on the status of food security that was released earlier this year shows that we have over 51 million people are facing hunger at the moment. And if we carry on doing the same thing, we will end up with more numbers. 75 million are expected in the region to really suffer from hunger by 2030. What does that mean? Is that we need to think of the way we do business, of the way we do development, of the way we approach it. Now, how do we link social finance? And I'm saying this, I'm glad to see colleagues from ESCWA, colleagues from the UN headquarters, and the advisor of the Secretary General on Special Advisor, and Yvonne from ESCWA and the colleagues, that the UN system sometimes focus on the global aspects, but forget to see the local context. When it comes to the region of mainly the ISDB member countries, the aspect of the Islamic social finance plays a major role on how do we do development. And the challenges, as I see it, is that we're talking about small farmers, and if you look at our development based on farming, all aspects of farming, I'm talking about from fishery to pasturing, all areas, is based on family businesses, the small ones. These individuals are so much scattered that they cannot make an economic power by themselves. They cannot get and conglomerate together to make a power so that they have a more influence in terms of the how they do partnership, and they have a more influence and an impact on the local economy. And that's why the state in most of our countries takes over on the small farming. Now, what does economic empowerment provides is that whole holistic ecosystem. And I didn't say this, Dr. Nabil, you said this on the economic empowerment approach, that the microfinance by itself does not help this situation. So we need a full ecosystem where microfinance is one of the components of that ecosystem that brings these small farmers and those small members of the community together as an economic power. And that's the whole concept of empowerment. It's not individual empowerment, it's empowering them as a group. Islamic social finance comes as a financing mechanism where you bring in the whole community of charity and zakah and donations and sadaqah and try to channel it instead of being scattered, misused, is not focused to certain SDGs, and maybe does not create the needed development impact, and put it in one pool where you focus the impact on certain value chain, and that value chain will hit on a certain target, either it's milk or vegetables or certain crops, but you're bringing from small individual people, either the donors, and those are the givers of the Islamic social finance through sadaqah and zakah, or the beneficiaries, the small farmers and the small scale workers, and bring them together as blocks that would partner with big partners, and that is the whole purpose of the ecosystem. So I truly see that this will transform the way we target zero hunger or SDG 2 by 2030. What I see today, if we carry on doing our business as usual, we'll end up eliminating the chances and opportunities to grow for small farmers. They will end up overtaken by big corporates and big firms. Their lands will be sold, and will create more poverty, less jobs, because the super technologies will take over, and then we will not be able to empower those in more needs, and especially those in rural areas. Having economic empowerment ecosystem done in a proper partnership settings, and where you bring the givers or the benefactors, and you let them appreciate and recognize the value of the money they're giving, because you're pulling it through an ecosystem. And that ecosystem will have a higher impact of empowering those small components of the economy and make them as a more powerful economic bloc. I think economic empowerment, if not the only one, it would be the most critical, impactful mechanism towards the zero hunger SDG 2 that we're aiming to by 2030. I'll stop here for now. Hopefully I'll have a chance to come back with some more thoughts.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hakim, for this eloquent and very interesting intervention. Of course, after each batch of questions, I will try to wrap up the takeaways of the different interventions and try to share the main ideas with the audience. Let me, with no further delay, go to Yvonne. Yvonne, according to 2020 Islamic Finance Development Report, the Islamic financial industry is increasing at by double digits year over year, and it's expected that the total assets will reach 3.7 trillion by 2024. And this growth appears to be not only because of religious convictions, but because this industry is proving to be a viable and I would say more resilient, more stable model that could bring additionality to the global financial system. So from UNDP perspective, how this Islamic finance, in your opinion, especially the social one, can help in achieving the SDGs, and what are the UNDP and the UN initiatives that are seeking to mobilize this crucial source of funding to achieve that?
Thanks so much, Nabil, and thanks also for having me on the panel, and really, really great to see also the other speakers. I still remember a very dynamic meeting with Abdul Hakim in his old function, and I'm looking forward to engaging in his new one. So, and thanks also for so aptly setting the stage. I think going back to the whole financing for development context is so relevant in this conversation. So I think that, you know, we all agree that the SDGs will not be achieved without having the concept of blended finance completely rolled out in every aspect of what it is that we do. And so for us, exactly as you say, Nabil, if you look at the size of Islamic finance assets that are forecasted to reach 3.69 trillion by 2024, you know, this becomes a very vital, innovative financing modality to fill the SDG funding gap. So the core principles of Islamic finance, you know, channeling funding to the real economy by promoting risk sharing, avoiding excessive speculations, limiting debt to the value of assets, and Islamic social financial tools, the zakat, the sadaqah that you already referred to, the waqf, they're highly aligned with the spirit of the SDGs. So UNDP started scaling up efforts to engage countries on Islamic finance in all sorts of innovative ways, and we obviously have a presence in 170 countries. We have 550 years of experience. You know, there's all sorts of things we can do to ensure that Islamic finance organizations align with the SDGs, that they monitor, that they report, and they communicate development impact, like it is already doing, for example, in Indonesia, where we have a very successful initiative I will speak about, and also in some of the other countries. So one of the examples from Indonesia is the UNDP Waqf blockchain, and that is established in partnership with the Badan Waqf in Indonesia to fill the gap in the financing of the Sustainable Development Goals in Indonesia. And Indonesia has the world's largest Muslim nation by population, of course. So the Islamic Social Finance Instrument targets several SDGs. It targets the no poverty goal. It targets the good health and well-being goal. The goal 3, it targets the quality education goal, the affordable and clean energy goal, the decent work and economic growth goal, and the industry innovation and infrastructure goal. We also established something that is called the Global Islamic Finance and Impact Investment Platform, and with a very different abbreviation of GIFIIP. And it's established by UNDP, IIC, PSD, and the Islamic Development Bank in 2016. So the activities under this platform are divided into 3 main areas. One is the Green Sukuk initiative. The second is the assessment, studies, and analysis of country-specific industry-based researches. And the third is capacity development activities like Islamic finance and impact investment training. Now, there's a third initiative I wanted to mention that is called the Green Sukuk initiative that sits under this Global Islamic Finance and Impact Investing platform. And this Green Sukuk has recently emerged as a unique example of a Sharia-compliant impact investing instrument with strong growth prospects to fund environmentally friendly endeavors. So it's initiated in partnership with the Islamic Finance Advisory and Islamic Development Bank, of course, because you are one of our strongest partners in all of this, the Security Commission in Malaysia, and the Islamic Corporation for Development of the Private Sector. also of the ISDB. And the whole initiative aims to expand the role of Islamic finance in achieving the SDGs and to facilitate access for green projects in developing countries. Now, there is a fourth initiative that I also would like to mention, and I hope I'm not taking too much time, but that is UNDP's partnership with BASNAS, which is a national Zakah collection body on Zakah. Through this partnership, BASNAS funding for SDG related projects, we collect funds as the original mandate of the BASNAS dictates, and also makes grants to UNDP to implement projects, and those are then implemented in accordance with the UN Charter and the UNDP global policies. So UNDP and the World Zakat Forum launched this partnership in 2019 to help national and international partners leverage and align new sources of finance for the Sustainable Development Goals. So I think all these four initiatives, all in their own right, very, very different, with different perspectives and different objectives, are all examples of how we are in every country, exactly as Abdul Hakim was saying. You know, you need to be so context specific, and you cannot have a cookie cutter approach in any country. And of course, you know, I'm in Palestine, and I know very well, you know, with the limitations that we're operating within, you know, there's only so much you can do, but it is very, very important for us to constantly innovate and to seek these unusual partnerships that Abdul Hakim was also referring to. We need to have an unorthodox way of doing business to be able to deal with the very complex issues of our time. So thanks so much, Nabil, for this first question.
Thank you, Yvonne. Indeed, there is so much to be done. We need to synergize. We need this kind of strategic partnerships between all the stakeholders to achieve all the goals. Thank you, Yvonne. Let me finish this first batch of questions with Dr. Qahtani. Dr. Nasser, the same, building on this, on the previous questions, what would you, if you have any thoughts to share with us about the phase SDGs funding gap and the role of the Islamic social financing in reducing this gap? You have been working extensively to increase the awareness about the importance of financial inclusion in the Arab region. So for sure, you are facing on daily basis this kind of challenges and this kind of issues to how to mobilize funding, basically to support the vulnerable categories, the vulnerable enterprise, the micro business in a good number of countries. The floor is yours, Dr. Nasser.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me in this timely webinar discussion. I really appreciate it, and thank you for the previous speaker, how important highlighting the empowerment of women. And we really appreciate in Ag Fund how you do through the economic empowerment approach. Before going that, let me just take 1 minute and go back that Ag Fund created 1980 to support women and children without any discrimination, race, religion, etc. So during the 1890, we worked too closely. By the way, we never done any project unless aligned with the international goal, with the United Nations goals particularly. So Ag Fund all the time, closely, whatever we do, align with Millennium Development Goal, SDG, etc. Making this long story short, the only thing for gap, let's go back what we have tried to do to make things sustainable, to make, you know, this is financing for development. Financing for development is an issue. And we need financing more for the poor, and we need things to be sustainable, because in Ag Fund, we believe any project is not sustainable, is not real development. So this is one of the way we did. But during the 90s, Ag Fund look at what is the most critical approach to empower women. We found this is in 3 areas. That's happening as a systematic early childhood development. You know, you cannot, you know, empower women with having early childhood develop. You cannot do it without distant and open learning, and you cannot do it with financial inclusion. And this is the 3 thematic area we've been doing is to create an institute for it. The first, you know, initiative we did with UNDP, we created the first center in the Arab region, Kautar. Kautar, we're proud with that, Kautar with United Nations. This is a regional NGO supported by government, by United Nations, etc. Kautar, all of us know what Kautar doing for empower women, especially for financial education for women. They're doing a lot of it. The reason we're talking about how important is financial inclusion, and particularly Islamic social financing. I remember the first trip I did to Yemen was a colleague from Islamic Bank, Ahmed Mohammed Ali, at that time sat with us, Dr. Bashir. We're thinking about opening the first bank in the region. When we discussed those things, we found that this is needed. The first people in approach, and we look at the people who receive zakah and sadaqah. And one of the things we decide and agree about it, how can we take these people from receiving zakah and sadaqah to pay zakah and sadaqah? I remember that word. Ahmed Mohammadi say it loudly. How can Nasser we do this? We started the first bank, microfinance bank in Yemen, and the second one in Jordan, Bahrain, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, Sudan, Mauritania, and Sierra Leone. Why we started in Yemen? Because Yemen is the poorest country in the Arab region. And we started in Africa and Sierra Leone because the worst. Saying about SDGs, we are a believer in SDGs. Whatever we do, it always align. All of our product and microfinance align with this. We always thinking, if this is the product, how can that would serve women? And how can that reflect increase the number of enrollment for children and so on? This is take us to the root. There is a gap. How that's coming in the gap? We always, what make Ag Fund is unique in this, because we always look at the region. When we do the feasibility doing microfinance bank, we look at 22 countries. That 22 countries talking about 300 million. That's what make it feasible. So whatever we do it right now is reaching and serving almost 1 million persons so far. Taking most of the people, and by the way, our modality, for you to know, it's financial inclusion, include people in the financial system. Some of the people in Yemen, in Sudan, was being included not to give a loan, by the way, to just receive payment, to remittances, insurance, and the loan coming, behind, because you cannot include it. By receiving this money, imagine that Ag Fund, the first bank given loan to people who receive social safety net in Yemen. 50% of that people who receive that loan and be integrated using mobile and etc. came back within 6 months and said, we don't need it because we already been in the financial system and etc. Going back to the gap, Ag Fund always believer and work closely with an integrated UN system approach. I am often being asked, what does it mean for development? It means one thing for me, working through the UN RC system. I consider myself witnessing for our colleague when working too closely with the UN. The UN RC system is the most important channel because they look at need, priority, and challenge. And that's why when we decided 97 and taken, we take the challenge. We never involve in a project saying needs or priority. We always go with the channel. At the same time, the RC is helping us to, as a facilitator, and this is the first time, access to national, regional, and international. And in this way, working too closely with the Islamic Bank and doing this, really, we need to look at the region because the region needs more coordination, more talking to each other. Right now, wherever we go, we're always looking at the platform and the initial economic empowerment approach, appreciated in Jordan, appreciated in Yemen, in Sudan, and Mauritania. And this is, we benefited a lot. And Islamic Bank always believe in what we're doing and continue working together, especially now we are a partner in the IBDA Sudan Bank. And now what we're doing in IBDA Bank, we're now going digitalization. You know who is transferring knowledge and skill for the digitalization? Our team in Yemen. Our team in Yemen, 1996, they have mobiles, they have remittances, they have an insurance, they have 8,000 points of sale in Yemen. Imagine that's being developed by Yemenis, and that's Yemenis right now during the conflict is now in Sudan to convert that one. This is something we need to talk to each other. We need to talk morely and highlight the success story. And I don't see that gap will having a problem. This Islamic social financing, not just filling the gap. No, they give us the starting seed money. Some of the area, because we in our modality, we need non-financial services. The one who support us is coming from that modality. And that's, I hope I didn't take that much time for you guys, but I get back to you and I will be ready to answer any question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nasser, for this very insightful intervention. Indeed, we are a partner in IBDA Bank, but we are also partner on other very strategic initiatives, mainly the one aiming to build the capacity of the third sector in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, let me wrap up this first discussion and share with the audience some takeaway messages. So over 51 million people in the region are suffering from hunger, and this is a real challenge for SDG 2 in the region. Microfinance can solve the challenge of the small farmers in the region, and it could be a component in a whole ecosystem that combine both financial and non-financial services through group financing and not individual. The economic empowerment ecosystem and proper partnerships are crucial to achieve the SDG 2 in the region. Otherwise, we will miss an important target, and big internal companies will be I would say motivated, you know, to serve the small farmers if this partnerships take place, and they will of course try to avoid losing very precious jobs and source of sustainable income. UNDP is interested in Islamic finance, is interested in green sukuk. They're working on a number of ISDB member country like Indonesian government. They are working also on partnerships in Islamic finance because they see in that a potential, and they feel that there is an importance and an important role that Islamic finance can play. And we have really, you know, to innovate in terms of business models to be able to achieve the SDGs by 2030. Also, partnerships with similar institutions like IBDA banks is important, and they can greatly contribute in reducing the SDGs gap. And ACFund is playing a very important role and is trying to align all its interventions with the international agenda, with the SDGs agenda, and will not only utilize the Islamic social finance in empowering the people, but also they will work on establishing great partnerships with MDBs, likewise ISDB, to basically serve the bottom of the pyramid and to channel the Islamic social finance resources toward the vulnerable people. Going back to the funding gap, ACFund also thinks that the issue is not the availability of money, but the availability of strategic projects and smart intervention, and also strategic partnerships. These are the key messages from our first round of discussion. And this being said, let me move to our second part of the debate, and the second topic of COVID-19 impact and measures taken, and the role of Islamic social finance modes and resources. Let me start this time by asking Yvonne on what are the main lessons learned from the UNDP intervention in the area of supporting and enabling the micro and the small and medium enterprises, and basically to establish the entrepreneurial ecosystem in developing countries. During this time of COVID-19, this challenging time, how UNDP help it to support this ecosystem, and how Islamic finance, social finance modes can help in supporting the different economic empowerment interventions that put the MSMEs at the heart of their business model. And I know you have been handling this deep program that was a very interesting joint initiative between UNDP and ISDB. The floor is yours, Yvonne.
Thanks so much, Nabil. And I was so pleased to hear Dr. Nasser speak about the One UN approach, the SDGs, the importance of women empowerment, and also the role of the RC in the coordination of the UN entities at country level, because it is so critical. And I think that we saw in our response to COVID, I think worldwide, is how the UN country teams came together to come up with coherent responses with UNDP in this technical role to ensure that these responses were developed. No, and I think again, what we saw under COVID is a further deepening of the gap between rich and poor. We saw a whole group of new poor being created, and I think some people even say that we've gone back 30 years when it comes to the progress that we've made on the SDG. So I think that there's a huge task ahead of us to not only find a new balance after COVID, but also to deal with the economic downfalls and the enormous inequalities that we're seeing in the world, but also, of course, very much in our own region. So, you know, there's lots of lessons learned, and also at the same time, you know, we're still, with many of these initiatives, we're still kind of finding our way in the middle of this COVID pandemic. So I think that the lessons learned will continue to be added to. We are doing very active research and development to make sure that whatever it is that we learn, we basically feed straight back into these programs that we are developing. And so under this GIF IIP program, you know, we did this, we're providing specific expertise at country level to make sure that R&D is actually properly developed. So exactly as you were saying, Nabil, you know, we have the DEEP program. We learned a lot from DEEP, and I think we mutually learned a lot from DEEP. And I think one of the fantastic elements of success, of course, is that it was completely nationalized and handed over to the government. So ensuring that sustainability, which I think is probably one of the hardest parts of any financial instrument, to make sure that it becomes sustainable. And what we've also done is taken this example of Palestine and linked that to Indonesia, to Turkey, through what we call the UNDP Alternative Finance Lab and the UNDP Innovative Finance Lab. And those have really been instrumental in helping countries explore these new funding opportunities, because that's a whole group of expertise that has all the knowledge of the legal context, etc., that you need to be mindful of. So, you know, we know of the instruments, of course, but what we also see is that these instruments are using increasingly, you know, innovative financial mechanisms, like, for example, cryptocurrency, like blockchain, like the Sukuk transactions. You know, they've been using blockchain since 2017, and that, of course, is still technology that a lot of the normal programs and projects don't quite use. No, so I think that is great. What we also discovered is that there are 37 institutions from different countries that are all that have great potential as partners, and they are including like a micro WOC bank, corporate social responsibility funds, and institutions handling social crowdfunding, the green sukuk that I already mentioned. And we found also a vibrant ecosystem of Islamic crowdfunding startups and SMEs, which is just wonderful to see. And so some of them, for example, were funding refugees with Zakat and blockchain technology, and others were financing Ramadan packages with Zakat and issuing socially responsible investment sukuk. So, you know, we do see great differences between regions and the local context. And what we also see is that it is important to take the local jurisdiction really into consideration when you roll out these things, because, of course, the legislation around these instruments, of course, is very important with regards to its use. Now, I think that what our strength in all of this is not only the innovation that we bring and the research and development, but also the fact that we have that convening role under the, the overseeing eye of the resident coordinator, and that we have this ability to steer efforts and to support coordination, to support design, and also to support ironing out those technical issues that I was already referring to, and these legal issues. So I think that would be a short answer to your long question.
It's very interesting answer, Yvonne. Actually, it's not short answer, and I really appreciate the efforts UNDP is undertaking, mainly the financing lab that can greatly help the different countries with innovative financing mechanism like blockchain, Sukuk, and crypto. This is very interesting, and these fintech solutions are crucial now and can really create a lot of jobs for youth in vulnerable countries. Let me move to Dr. Abdul Hakim Al-Waer again, and let me build on the first question, SDG 2. Dr. Hakim, during the pre-COVID-19, there was an annual funding gap of 2.5 trillion to achieve the SDGs in developing countries. And the pandemic may have increased this by at least 70% according to the World Economic Forum, which is a huge, huge gap. So in your opinion, what would be the main policy changes that developing countries could undertake to fill even partially this financing gap for the SDG and especially SDG 2, and how international organizations like FAO can help in this exercise, this difficult exercise, I would say?
Thank you very much, Dr. Nabil, and thanks to Dr. Nasser on alluding on the importance of the access to finance and financial inclusion. I think ACFAD is doing a great job on widening the accessibility to financial mechanisms through innovative digital means, and that's very well appreciated. And we really need to capitalize as a development partners on that particular achievement to make sure that we reach out to especially those poor ones in the rural areas. And from food and agriculture organizational perspective, it's the farmers and the people living in the rural areas that we always struggle to reach out. Now, you asked a very important question on the gap and the financing gap, and that's why I reminded you about the ISDB efforts at the Financing for Development Conference that was prior to the SDGs on how the Islamic finance can help and support the achievement of the SDGs. But you alluded to the COVID crisis that came out, and how did that actually increase the gap tremendously in terms of reaching out to the SDGs. Today, without COVID, we know, or prior to COVID, that many of the SDGs were off target and will not be able to achieve them by normal means. COVID just escalated the problem and showed that I think I would see from a positive perspective, it was a wake-up call that we really need to do something different. COP26 that's just concluded a few days ago has also brought to our attention that we will not be able to achieve what we are trying to target in terms of achieving the climate targets. That will impact on every SDGs, from hunger to poverty to water to energy, and you name it, the list goes on. That, of course, calls on doing things different. And I say that, one, we need to reorganize ourselves. The UN is doing a tremendous effort on the One UN Forum and the reforms that's going on, and how the UN and we are intensively coordinating with our regional directors and ADGs in the region with all the UN agencies on a regular basis to try and streamline our interactions, to make it easier for those to avail the resources, be it public or private, but also identify key targets of how do we deliver and to reach out to the beneficiaries at the right time in the right place. So that's one aspect. We really need to streamline and identify and prioritize our interactions through more partnership and coordination with the development partners. The second one is to reach out to potential and new, we call them on the group of brackets donors. I like to call them development partners. Those are the people who have the financial resources and have the means and the will to finance development, but they may not have the necessary capacity. They don't have the know-how. So they need the development players on the ground to achieve those targets, identify who are the beneficiaries. And we take Islamic social finance as a means. Today, if you look at the Islamic social finance and the figure you mentioned, the figure itself by Islamic social finance is enough to close the gap, not only in the region, worldwide. It's a huge figure. Why it is not working? It's simply because either it's not channeled to the right targeted beneficiaries, or there's no ecosystem that allows it to derive the necessary benefits. So having an ecosystem like the EEA, the Economic Empowerment Approach, with the right leadership from the financial institutions in the region, to set it up and bring the partners and say, if you are contributing through an Islamic social finance to the region, here is an ecosystem that will ensure that you get the right impact you're trying to achieve, instead of this money going on a more haphazard or random way of spending as it is right now, is to put it on a more impactful and more targeted achievements, where you still achieve globally, either at the global level or the regional level, the targets that you want to achieve, in reaching out to the poor, in reaching out to the needy, and in a more sustainable manner. The known wisdom says, teach me how to fish and don't give me a fish. That's what economic empowerment is all about. It is about setting up a sustainable ecosystem where people get a sustainable job of creating their own sustainable economy. So COVID, positive side, is a wake-up call. It has triggered our minds that we cannot carry on doing business as usual. We used to talk about COVID to protect ourselves. We wanted to put security and food crisis as we noticed shortage of food. Today we're facing a big surge on food prices increase. This is all calls for people to and communities and development partners to rethink the way they do development. And the way, as I see it, is to pool out funds in an agreed trust fund. Create a fund in whatever label you want to label it, and a financial institution takes the lead on that one, where you pull out these small, I would say impactless at a small level, but they can be impactful once they conglomerate in a compounded way. And one of the problems with the challenges with Islamic social finance, it's a small magnitude relatively when it is factored and separated. So unless you compound that in a fund that will create a high impact, it will remain with a less impact as it is scattered the way it is. Then have a clear program where you target most needy beneficiaries for more sustainable job creation, for more sustainable economic engagement and economic contribution. And I think that that ecosystem is the way to go, at least on achieving a good portion of those who are affected by the crisis and the shortage of finances for SDGs, if we want to be able to meet these targets by 2030. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hakim. I like the idea of creating funds, trust funds or impact investment funds. We need at a certain point of time to capitalize on this, yes, small amounts, small funds coming from social finance. However, this could be an excellent backup to impact investment fund that can attract very strong impact investors looking for double effect, small reasonable return plus an important impact. And it's all about how to structure these funds to make them attractive to the private sector, basically to serve the SDGs. Thank you very much, Dr. Luar. I will finish this second round of discussion with a question to Dr. Nasser Al-Qahtani. Dr. Nasser, would you please share with us some examples or models of AG Fund interventions in supporting micro businesses, small farmers, producers, cooperatives, especially during the time of COVID-19 crisis?
Thank you very much. By the way, we've been supporting the small farmer from the beginning. And we thought supporting them because those group with microfinance and the banking, they look at that, it's a risky business. That's why Ag Fund interfered in that business. But when we start doing this, we found out those people is not too risk compared with what happened during COVID-19. You know, when we start doing this and we make a little study after COVID-19, what is the most effective goal among the 17 when it's come to poverty, alleviation, and hunger? We found this goal number 2. And we find why? Because we link this and everybody, you know, face that with the food security. We find out that 40%, now this is the number, 30% of the job creating internationally coming from agriculture. 70% of them, small farmer. What we did regarding this, and Dr. Abdul Hakim Al-Wahir, we were talking to him regarding, having a global policy to recognize the small farmer as micro enterprise. You know, if you look at the history, if you discuss, nobody even give them finance, etc. What we did during that one, we use your approach, by the way, and I'm telling you the truth. We come up with an ecosystem for the small farmer. That's happening during COVID-19. What we did, we brought our partner, Suez Capacity Building Facility, and tell them, let's study how to mitigate the risk for the small farmer. We complete the study, we integrate insurance with the weather index. Very basic one, and give us a tool to have the small farmer get in the first loan with the same time getting the insurance. By the way, that insurance comply with the Islamic Sharia because it's in Sudan, that one. With that ecosystem, we found out those group of farmers is the people who we need them, because during COVID-19 we face a problem with food security. So those people doesn't need a charity. Those people feeding themselves, and they could feed their community, and they could feed the whole society, and they could even export. What they need international recognition. Those people as a micro enterprises could have loan. Second, they need a distribution system to help them, etc. If we do this, we found out the example we did, we have more than 10,000 people get out of poverty through cultivating the Arab gum. You know, that's Arabic gum, which is available in Sudan, 80% coming in Sudan. That's grow and be in the desert. Who cultivate that one is the poor people. They just need some little money to cultivate it. You know what happened when they cultivated during 45 days? We found out if they sell it, they will sell it for 100. If they wait for 6 months, they sell it for $600. You know who's financing those people? The saving happened by poor women and saving bank. By the way, the modality using in Sudan, we did not even use our capital. We work with 17 banks in Sudan running their portfolio on their behalf. And the saving, we give the priority for that one. The other area, we go for the one who keep the rye and goats and this. That's people are poor. A son of poor and his father is poor. They make just 5 dinar jineh every day. When we include them in the financial system and he starts saving a jineh a day, within a month, they are entitled of getting the first loan to get 5 goats and take care of it with the group of people. You know, those people within 2 years, they started paying zakah. 2 years ago, those people receiving zakah. This is an area we want to take more attention. That we need, as I said, global policy and regional policy with a regional initiative to support the small farmer with the Arab region. At the same time, we need to push and improve the growth in the food security. At the same time, we want to come up with innovation. That's innovation happened in Sudan. Imagine today, the best two banks we have it, by the way, all of our banks doing well, coming with innovation. Our bank in Yemen, 100% digitalization. You know that we already have a digital currency in Yemen? It's already in Yemen. You sent it, you didn't even carry money. And the tool we use for a small farmer in Sudan. The least of that initiative, because whatever we do, it's always aligned with how we empower women, giving loan to women to start a nursery and kindergarten, because you cannot empower women, it's very prerequisite, without having safe transportation and kindergarten and nursery for their children. You know, within a year, we open 600 startups, nursery and kindergarten. We enroll 15,000 students, we create 1,000 job opportunity. And this kind of program, because when we see this is a startup, and you know why it's successful? Because we align it with the SDGs through empower women. Without doing this, and this is what we're missing in the region and most of the region, people have a vision, 2030, and they have the plan, but they never have the public policy which allow whatever they do with initiative linked with the SDGs. So what I mean, thank you for Abdelkarim Al-Wa'ad for proposing the fund. Yes, we need the fund. What we need ABEX fund. I'll take some from Al-Wa'ad, some from Eileen. And that ABEX fund should have blended financing. You know, blended financing, because this money coming through, this is a startup. We need it. The investor, by the way, I don't want to criticize people. If people saying there is a gap, that means you don't have a sustainable development. If you have a sustainable development, gap is not going to be there, because the private sector will be running to you to make money out of an initiative to empower small farmers, particularly women, by the way.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nasser. I think we have all the ingredients here to just now to launch our fund, our social finance fund, and start operation on the spot. I think let's have this this offline discussion, Dr. Nasser, and of course in presence of Yvonne and Dr. Hakim, and let's try to shape up this excellent initiative. Excellent. I think we had a rich round of discussion. Some takeaways, messages. Yvonne talked about very active research and development that is currently undertaking to find solutions for these challenges. She talked about the DEEP program, and she mentioned that it was an excellent initiative for learning, and it was very beneficial to all stakeholders. She also mentioned examples like UNDP financing gap. Financing lab that can greatly help the different countries with innovative financing mechanisms like blockchain, cryptocurrency, and so on and so forth. She mentioned that there is a vibrant Islamic ecosystem that is observed and social investment mechanisms that are currently being launched and implemented. She emphasized on the importance of legislation, and this legislation should be supportive to the instruments, to social finance instruments, and crucial to their development. Dr. Al-Wa'ar talked about the great work that is currently being done to widen the implementation of new instruments to reduce the SDG gap. He also mentioned that COVID-19 pandemic escalated the issue and of not achieving the SDG target, and COP26 showed the same pattern of not reaching the climate objectives. Dr. Al-Wa'ar also discussed or defended the fact that Islamic social finance is not enough to close the gap in the region and worldwide, but it could be like used as a catalyst to attract other funds. Food security increased and is getting more attention, and this will facilitate to pull out funds and compound the impact of course, on the vulnerable categories. Dr. Nasser mentioned many examples in Yemen, in Sudan, whereby ACFund mobilized resources from the local banks. Within 2 years, the beneficiaries became zakat givers instead of receivers. He discussed many topics like innovation, the importance of the innovation when it comes to serve vulnerable and poor categories. He mentioned that 1,000 job opportunities have been created under this initiative, and that ACFund is really trying to get closer to the economic empowerment approach adopted by ISDB. I think these are the main takeaways messages. Because we don't have that much time, let me quickly move to the last batch of questions, and let me start this time by Dr. Nasser. Dr. Nasser, let me build on your answers. You say that ACFund is trying to adopt this economic empowerment approach. So please, can you share with us some of these ACFund initiatives that are aligned with the spirit of the economic empowerment ecosystem in the Arab region? I know that you are a firm defender of the of financial inclusion in the Arab region, but now it's big time to migrate toward, I would say, a more comprehensive approach based on the economic inclusion concept. And please, if you can also share with us or explain to us how effective the partnerships and the SDG 17 and how this can help you in creating this ecosystem of economic empowerment while using the social finance or Islamic social finance resources through definitely the IBDA network. Dr. Nasser, in less than 3 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, we've been working before and in the future with the Islamic Bank and with the coordination group. We cannot work without your guidance, Islamic Bank, when it comes to economic empowerment. And now, as you know, we work together too closely. Even we develop a project document in Libya. That's one of the projects we want to do and help that. And what's make it unique, that ACFund, it's happened. We did not plan it, but that's what happened. ACFund now is working in the conflict zone. We working in Yemen, we work in Syria, we working in Sudan, we working in that. And without, we never have, any project without partnership. Our real partnership, and this is beside the Islamic Bank and coordination group, is the private sector. We have to build in private sector. But the way we do it in our banks, we develop what we call profit company. We call it non-dividend company dedicated to solve a human problem. Without this approach, we would not be working today during the crisis. We would be closed because using a different approach. What we think about it, and that's what we're studying in ACFund, and what's our plan, as by 2030, ACFund should double the amount of money, because right now we distribute around 100 million in 27. We want to double it by 2030 to make it 2 billion until 2030 for financial inclusion. We want to upgrade our banks in Yemen, in Sudan, everywhere, to be an ABEX fund. ABEX fund with the same modality, and Abdul Hakim could be, that's ABEX fund nationally could be benefit from the region fund. Because one of the problems we're facing in microfinance is the risk of loans, at the same time the hard currency. So if there is no one who take that hit before you take it to the MFIs or bank or the beneficiary, it will be costly and it will be net beneficiary. That's why since we have all the modality, we will be doing it at each country. We wish to upgrade our bank to give everybody the platform and technology and everything for free, and give them financing to expand that one. But that's always linked with the regional, because in ACFund, as you know, we work in the region, and we want, as you know, we work also in Africa and elsewhere. We want to replicate whatever we do in the Arab region, in Africa, and South America, and Asia. This is the modality we want to do it, because as you know, we want to replicate this, because when we started 1997, that area was a challenge. Now it's a priority. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nasser, for this insightful and brief answer. Madame Yvonne, can you comment, please, quickly in a couple of minutes on how building synergies and effective partnerships between the development actors like ISDB, FAO, UNDP, UN agencies in general, and governments can play this critical role in post-COVID recovery efforts? If you can share with us any examples or best practice in a couple of minutes, please.
Well, I don't know to what extent I have concrete examples, but I think it's a given that we can only achieve the SDGs by working together and by seeking these synergies all along. And I think that in that sense, you know, the DEEP program that we spoke about previously is such a great example, because that is an active partnership, for example, between the Palestinian Authority, between ISDB, UNDP, and 70 different civil society organizations. And I think that, you know, in the end, that kind of magic formula and the sustainability that you get out of it, where you do anchor that deeply into, you know, the social programs of the government. This is in the end also really the way forward to make sure that the approach continues. No, but I think in general, everyone recognizes, whether it is, you know, Dr. Nasser or Abdul Hakim or UNDP for that matter, that the strength sits in our ability to discuss, to work together closely, to seek synergies, and to really seek common approaches to be able to tackle these very, very complex issues. I think that no institution or agency going it alone is able to deal with the complexity of today. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you very much. Dr. Hakim, building on that, you know, economic empowerment is definitely strategic development intervention and relies heavily on forging effective partnerships to handle this complex development situation. In your opinion, how these strategic partnerships can help in achieving SDG 1 and achieving SDG 2, and especially that Islamic social finance resources are perfect fit to finance all these causes? In a couple of minutes, Doctor, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Dr. Nabil, again for this. Well, let me start by this. If you want to walk fast, walk alone. If you want to walk too far, you need to walk with the others. You can't make it alone. And we look at sustainable development and how to really sustain our beneficiaries. We don't want them to, I mean, I like the example Dr. Nasser mentioned, where he looked at people who are beneficiaries and in 2 years or 3 years, they become zakat payers and donors and givers to others. So that is the target, is really how to sustain people and transform their livelihood to a more prosperous situation. And in order to do that, we really need to be today focus on selective partnership. I think I call it more impact-oriented partnership, or partnership for impact. So it's not a partnership that we sit together and have coffee and tea and greet each other and say, thank you, it's nice to see you. No, we really need to see what is this partnership meant for? What the exact impact are we trying to achieve? And based on that impact, it's just like Dr. Nabil designing a project. So when you design a project, you identify the key resources and capacities or skills that you need, and you start hiring the people that you need for the project. It's exactly the same concept. You have a project to achieve through the ecosystem that the economic empowerment approach proposes. That ecosystem has components, and you need a partner for each component to cover. But as you go, you will find that you need local associations. We work very heavily at FAO on forming the farmers or small farmers associations and the corps, specifically in certain areas and certain regions, water user associations, small farmer associations, and all these, those are your partners. So your partnership should not be limited to financial institutions or government institutions. It should include the NGO, it should include the private sector. And once you have all those components that fill in all the gaps that you have in the ecosystem, only then you can say that you have the ecosystem completely built. And in some areas, you might need 1 or 2 partners who do the same thing, simply because one of them can cover one region and the other cannot cover another region. So I think at this stage, we want to make, at least from our perspective, an achievement and an impact on the zero hunger achievement towards 2030 on the SDG 2, we need to make sure that we plug into this ecosystem with ISDB, at least in the region, AG funded as financial institutions. We need to work together to mobilize partners both from private and public sector, but mostly on Islamic social finance, on gathering more private and personal contributions from benefactors. We have then the UNDP, ESCO, and all the UN system in the region that help us on gathering more the civil societies in the region to be able to create that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Hakim. I like this new concept of partnerships for impact. I think we have a lot of innovative concepts today. I have an urgent call from the organizers to open the Q&A session. Many thanks really to our speakers for sharing this very valuable insights, this very rich discussion, and thanks also to the audience for your complete attention. Let's move to the Q&A session. Any participant that would like to ask the question just can raise his or her hand to get the floor. Also, you can write in the chat box your questions, just your name, your organization, if any, and also please specify to whom exactly you are asking your questions, who are the speakers targeted by your question. So let's open the Q&A session. Do we have any hand raised here, or let's go to the chat box? Please, organizers, help me because I don't see the hands. I don't see the full list of the audience.
Somebody raised a hand.
Yes, there's the hand.
Yeah.
Abdelhamid. Abdelhamid, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Abdelhamid Abdouli. I am from IFAD in Rome. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the speakers for these interesting interventions. And I couldn't agree more with the two topics, which is the empowerment and of the rural poor and of the poor, I should say, and also the COVID-19 pandemic. From IFAD, I would like just to share with you that there is two very challenging, important elements that I think we need to focus also, in addition to what all the colleagues have said. One is the fact that if you produce and you don't enable the producer, smallholder, to sell their produce, you cannot actually contribute a lot to ending hunger. One of the issues is the partnership with the private sector, the private processors, the exporters, and the sellers, and that's very important. And we have many cases in many countries in the Arab region. And I think, I think this is very important to make sure that the financing, the social inclusion financing, should cover also the post-production aspects of the value chain, I should say. The second most important element as well is the issue of the climate change and its impact on food production, and therefore on the food security. And in order to end the hunger, we have also to enlarge our partnership, as you mentioned earlier, all the speakers, the partnership in scaling a partnership to be able to deal, to synergize with the GEF, with the Adaptation Fund, with the Green Climate Fund. Those have plenty of resources that are very much needed, because the smallholder farmers are the ones who are working in the very vulnerable, very climate change affected environments. Let me stop here. Thank you very much. And I found it very interesting. Over.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdelhamid. Very glad that IFAD is represented today. Thank you for this insightful comment. Any reaction from the speakers? If not, let's move to.
Thank you, Dr. Nabil. Just a quick word. It's important to recognize on what we're doing on economic empowerment, the role IFAD plays. From our side, IFAD is the financial institution that's dedicated for agricultural development and food security. And they're, of course, our right-hand arm at the FAO on all what we do in relation to agriculture and food security. So on SDG 2, they are key, And whatever we do as we move forward in terms of partnership and promoting financing, IFAD remains our key partner that we wish to see, because they understand both from our perspective the agriculture challenge and food security, as well as the financing need and how these finances are managed. It's still very important to link up with the Islamic Development Bank and Ag Fund to understand more the concept of the Islamic social finance and how the local context can be taken on board while doing finance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hakim. And the good news is that we are working on a very interesting initiative with the IFAD called ABC Fund, which is an impact investment fund meant basically to support the agribusiness and the agricultural value chains in a good number of countries. So hopefully this will be just the warming up starting point of our collaboration, and we will build on that to launch other very interesting collaboration opportunities with IFAD. Thank you, Dr. Hakim. I have a question from Khalid Ahmed. Khalid, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Doctor, and thanks for all the speakers for their very informative and very critical perspectives. I will build on what Dr. Hakim mentioned about the importance of doing partnership not only with the financial institutions, but with the local institutions that are working on the ground. And I will direct my question to Yvonne. Yvonne, there's a lot of growing literature on the importance of working with the intermediary institutions. Basically, these are the local institutions that that the financial institutions rely on in terms of, picking the right people to finance them, like channel the non-financial service, the capacity building. Sometimes these intermediary institutions could be like a local NGO, like a big local NGO. It could be like a cooperatives, different type of local organization. So I would like to hear more about the these intermediate institutions in the case of the DEEP, because we know like the structure of the DEEP, ISDB was financing, UNDP was implementing. Did UNDP was actually the one who is giving the people the training and the financing, or you had a partnership at the local level with these, what you call intermediary institution? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. I know, obviously, I could not agree more with you. Of course, you work with local institutions. I think that Dr. Nasser also stressed the importance of the local banks, the local institutions. They know they understand the environment. They have the networks. They have the understanding of the situation at local level, local legislative contact, and so on and so forth. So within the context of DEEP, we had about 30,000 beneficiaries, but we worked with 70 different civil society organizations to actually do all these different activities that we did under the DEEP, which was exactly as you say, business planning, basic management training skills, specialized technical training, all sorts of things. And so I think that one of the successes of the program was exactly the extensive involvement of the civil society in Palestine, that is very vibrant and very, very competent. So I think that certainly was an enormous element in the success of the program. So thanks so much for that question.
Thank you, Yvonne. We have in the chat box a suggestion from our colleagues at ISDB, Zafarjan Kotamov. He said, many thanks for presenters, organizers, and moderators. I suggest that we continue this important dialogue, including having regular meetings, such as one we are having today, to discuss progress update and next steps. I think this is an excellent suggestion that will be submitted to the organizers at ISDB and UNESCO to study it. Thank you, Zafar. I have a hand raised from Mohammed Mazen Dakhli. Mazen, the floor is yours. And probably after Mazen, I will get 1 or 2 questions maximum, and we will conclude this event by inviting Dr. Merekhi to deliver closing remarks to the audience. Mazen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nabil. My question is not addressed to a specific speaker, but it's rather to all of them and all the audience. Thank you for highlighting in your introduction the role of the components that are needed and the vectors of intervention that are needed for economically empower the poor, from viable and profitable project opportunities to intelligent partnerships that the poor cannot do alone. Also, the most crucial affordable infrastructure that is not within the capacities of poor or smallholder farmers, and also the appropriate funding for the needs of a specific project. And the most crucial and most important aspect of accessing to relevant markets. All these aspects, as everyone would agree, do need strong financial support that will not have short-term returns. And we need patient capitals such as those coming from Islamic social finance resources. I strongly support the idea of setting an initiative on the very short term on establishing a dedicated trust fund or an apex fund. And I think ISDB has the proper knowledge, R&D, and capacity to implement and help in structuring that fund, trying to gather partners around that fund and help in mobilizing resources with the support and help of its partners that are willing to achieve the same targets. So this is what I wanted to share, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mazen. I think we have a lot of initiatives, and I would like that one of the speakers, if Dr. Hakim can react to this, because he kickstarted this kind of reflection or brainstorming on innovative initiative. Dr. Hakim.
Maybe I would leave room also to others, but I think I don't have a specific response, but I can only highlight that the need to build everything around the ecosystem is very important. Look at the economic empowerment approach ecosystem, identify the components, identify the roles and responsibilities, and get the actors to work together towards a more impact and have a more accountability framework around it, so that, you know, people, especially now you're dealing with more Islamic social finance, charity money, that people need to know. And I like the example you shared on the blockchain in Indonesia, because they all want to know where do we spend the money. So it's important to link that with accountability. Let me stop here.
Thank you, Dr. Hakim. Let me finish with the final question from Ghassan Al-Khalifi. Ghassan, the floor is yours in less than 1 minute, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Nabil, and thank you to all the honorable guests. My question is to Dr. Nasser. We know currently AgFund is really focusing on deploying an apex entity. So my question is really, how do you foresee that the rollout of this apex entity will contribute in reaching really the deepest poverty pockets in the region? Yes, I think that would be my question.
Thank you very much, Ghassan. Dr. Nasser.
Yeah, thank you, Ghassan. Our initiative to include people in the financial system. Poor people need access to finance. And I respond, imagine those poor people, small farmer or etc., linked with the supply chain, and they could export. Now they could pay and transfer, remittance the money electronically. Imagine if we change the policies, that's people who have food could export it and just sell it to the refugees themselves. Refugees, I'm not talking about competing in others. We have 70 million refugees all over the world, and those people need food, agriculture, etc. I know they have no money, but the ecosystem, if you build the ecosystem and somebody from Sudan could sell in Saudi Arabia, and somebody from Saudi Arabia could sell in Egypt, from Egypt could sell in Mauritania, and etc. Imagine that platform is available for people to trading. Trading is the future. You know the money, the return in the whole African Arab region come from trading. You know that central banks now putting their money in an instrument. Islamic Bank know about it, and they do it in Africa, and they make a return higher than anywhere else. Those young and poor people, if you include them in the financial system and you give them all the instrument, saving, insurance, loan for school, building a house, etc. Imagine if you are insured, what risk you will take? Nowadays, if imagine that's people, imagine I didn't have one farmer in Sudan. They lose their money. They make money, almost double money what they receive. Why? Because they have an ecosystem and they have been linked to supply chain. I remember, and this is an example, we was given a loan for people to grow, agriculture and everything, to sell it for the animal. They come and say, we need to buy a cow. You know what our team said? Let's say how many cow people from Khartoum could go and buy the milk. They found out that guy who could do it every day. If there is 40 cow, they brought 20 clients and they give everyone 2 cow. Those milk is make a lot of difference in their own life. Another example, sweet potato in Sierra Leone, and that's happening during COVID, by the way, during Ebola. Small farmer right now growing sweet potato, they make more money because, as you know, sweet potato is to prevent children not to be blind. That's happening with a small loan, and they feed their children, feed their community with a corporation of our banks, with Helen Clark Foundation and Sierra Leone.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nasser. Thank you very much. I think we arrived at the last section of our event today. Let me invite Dr. Ahmed Al-Marikhi to share with us his closing remarks. Dr. Ahmed, the floor is yours.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
في البداية أود أن أشكر دقيقة بس، كأن في تداخل ما بين اللغة العربية واللغة الإنجليزية. لأن داخل علي صوت اللغة المترجم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. طبعا في البداية أود أن أشكر هذه الشراكة ما بين البنك التنمية وكذلك الإسلامي وكذلك الأسكوا في كذلك مواصلة حقيقة هذه الندوات. وصلنا إلى الندوة التاسعة. في بداية الندوات حقيقة كانت هي تعريف بالتمويل الإسلامي وأهمية التمويل الإسلامي، كما وصلنا إلى يعني في خلال ال3 وال4 ندوات السابقة وصلنا إلى النماذج التي ممكن منظمات الأمم المتحدة تعمل فيها من خلال التمويل الاجتماعي الإسلامي. واليوم حقيقة نلتقي في التمكين الاقتصادي وأفكار مبتكرة. حقيقة أنا سعيد بكذلك اللقاء مع الأستاذ ناصر القحطاني، منذ زمن طويل ما التقينا، وسعيد أن احنا نلتقي اليوم، وكذلك المتحدثين الآخرين دكتور واعل وإنوفا وكذلك الدكتور نبيل. حقيقة شكرا جزيلا على ما قدمتموه. لكن خلال هذه الندوة حقيقة وجدت أن المومنتم لا زال موجود، وأهمية التمويل الإسلامي كل ندوة احنا نلتقي فيها نجد أن هناك اهتمام كبير وهناك أهمية كبيرة. اليوم لقينا الضوء أو ألقينا الضوء على زاوية وهي التمكين الاقتصادي. أنا أتذكر حينما كنت في مقديشيو في الصومال وزرنا أحد المخيمات اللاجئين هناك، والتقيت بالمرأة، كما تكلم أحد الأخوة المتحدثين عن التمكين للمرأة، وهذا حقيقة أمر في أمس الحاجة إليه وكذلك التركيز عليه. حينما التقيت مع هذه المرأة تقول أنا كنت أملك قطيع من الإبل يتكون من أكثر من 400 من 200 رأس من الإبل و400 رأس من الغنم، ولكن بسبب الجفاف وبسبب كذلك الكونفليكت اللي حاصل يعني مات من القطيع ولم يتبقى لدي إلا 20 رأس. فقالت احنا لا نحتاج لا نريد منكم مساعدات، ولكن نريد التمكين الاقتصادي لنا حتى لو كان بقروض، لأن أنا متى ما تمكنت اقتصاديا ما كما ذكر يعني الأستاذ ناصر في أمثلته ما راح انا فقط يعني يعني اكتفي ذاتيا بنفسي، وانما كذلك ساقوم بالاكتفاء الذاتي لعائلتي وكذلك للمجموعه اللي تحيط فيه. فبالتالي نجد ان اليوم كذلك في خلال هذه الندوه حقيقه وجدنا كيف ممكن من خلال الافكار ان نستطيع ان نتحصل على الفند. فالان انا يعني أبارك لأجبا وجود فند من الفاو، فهذا كذلك من الدكتور الواعد. فهذه أحد الأمثلة حقيقة التي نريد أن نحققها في وجود نظام داخل منظمة الأمم المتحدة يقوم بوضع السياسات ووضع كيفية الإنفاق وكيفية الترتيب، ويكون هناك فعلا آلية قابلة للتحقيق كما ذكر يعني الدكتور الواعر، بأن احنا لا نريد فقط يعني شراكة هي فقط لمجرد اللقاء والاجتماع، ولكن شراكة للتأثير على الأرض، لأن احنا في النهاية لابد أن يكون تركيزنا في كيفية توصيل هذه المساعدات لمستحقيها. وطبعا عندنا أمثلة كثيرة كما تطرق لها الإخوان، ونحن نتطلع حقيقة من خلال هذه الندوة اليوم وجود طبعا كذلك الفاو معنا، وكذلك وجود الUNDP كذلك معنا. هذا يوسع الدائرة التي احنا اشتغلنا فيها من البداية، ونتطلع حقيقة للوصول إلى يعني الرود ماب اللي راح نقوم بوضعها في نهاية هذه الندوات بمشاركة المختصين، والتي نتطلع حقيقة في النهاية أن نخرج بآلية للتمويل الإسلامي الاجتماعي التي تمكن حقيقة من الوصول للناس الذين هم فعلا بحاجة من ناحية، وكذلك تسد الجاب الذي هو موجود لدى منظمات الأمم المتحدة الإنسانية خاصة منها والتنموية بشكل عام. وأريد أن أشكركم الشكر الجزيل، وأشكر المتحدثين اليوم على ما قدموه، وكذلك الشكر حقيقة لك دكتور على إدارة هذه الندوة بشكل حقيقة استطعنا أن نستفيد فعلا من المتحدثين. طبعا الشكر موصول لكذلك الذين حضروا معنا اليوم من الحضور الكريم، ونتطلع كذلك حضورهم معنا في الندوة القادمة، ويمكنهم الاستفسار أكثر من خلال الموقع الحوار الدولي. وكذلك طبعا الشكر موصول للمترجمين والذين هم دائما وابدا خلف الكواليس، ولكن حقيقة دائما يؤدون الدور الرئيسي لتوصيل المعلومة كما هي. شكرا.
شكرا جزيلا دكتور أحمد المريخي على هذا الطرح وعلى هذه الكلمة الاختتامية. والحقيقة شكرا على دعمكم الكبير لهذه الشراكة بين البنك الإسلامي للتنمية واليونسكو، وعلى رعاية هذا الحوار البناء حول أهمية التمويل الاجتماعي الإسلامي الاجتماعي. At the end of this event, I would like to reiterate my warm thanks to all our honorable speakers for having accepted our invitation to be with us today, and for all of you, dear participants and guests, for having availed yourself to join this discussion. Inshallah, see you on the next event, and have a nice day wherever you are. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
شكرا جزيلا. مع السلامة. يومكم سعيد.
يومك سعيد. السلام عليكم.
شكرا. أسعد الله يومكم.
شكرا للجميع.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much.